Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao on Pod and Roku TV's World Edition, and we welcome you to this wonderful show where we talk about global affairs, innovation, and an increasingly changing and turbulent world politically. Today, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the game changer in the 2024 presidential elections. As governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis dropped out yesterday out of the presidential race, saying that he would endorse former President Trump. This leaves everyone with all eyes on Ambassador and former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, who will now make a claim to the DeSantis supporters. She is the best person to take on President Joe Biden in 2024. This is going to be a very, very interesting development, and we look forward to talking about that on this show. Will DeSantis' endorsement of Trump help him solidify the base, clinch New Hampshire, and then win the presidency, at least the presidential nomination? We'll be talking about that and tomorrow on World Politics, although I have a city council meeting that starts at 4:30, so I won't be there. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected an offer from Hamas to release hostages in return for a complete withdrawal from Gaza. ExxonMobil filed a lawsuit against two investment groups that have proposed a shareholder vote on the new climate targets. And a Russia fuel export terminal suspended some operations after a fire erupted in a suspected Ukraine drone attack. I could go on and on. There's just so much information going around the world. But I also want to begin today, and we'll continue our discussion of world politics, because I think it's important to dive into Bidenomics and to look at, has the president's investments in infrastructure led to jobs and economic growth and opportunity? And are we in our country? And are we better off today in the United States than we were 4 years ago? And is the world better off with a war in Israel and a war in Ukraine? Now, last week, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, made a case in North Carolina that his $3 trillion of investments was working, leading to over 880,000 households in North Carolina now with broadband, and an $82 million investment he announced, which would provide coverage to 16,000 more high-speed internet in rural areas, reducing the monthly internet bill to $30 a month. He talked about Corning and Comcast and others who are laying fiber optic network, investing hundreds of millions of dollars and creating many, many jobs. And let's not forget the $31 billion of investment in North Carolina manufacturing companies of semiconductors, largely because of the CHIPS Act, which have actually led to significant jobs with Wolfspeed, formerly Cree, VinFast. In Morrisville, we have Forge Nano, a lithium battery manufacturer. All of these companies are doing wonderful, wonderful things in North Carolina. So the president made a case that the economy is stronger. And it's going to be very interesting as we put him against either Trump or Nikki Haley. What is the argument for Republicans to get back? These are the things that we're going to be debating today for a few minutes, at least with me. Welcome to the show. Let's get started. We have with me today Mark Lee, our co-host and producer, Nick Paladiva, and others who will be joining this panel, and Sasha Starr. Welcome, Sasha. We also want to get an update from Ukraine. Well, I'm going to jump right into the elephant in the room, DeSantis. Of course, we'll be talking about this on World Politics, but what do you all think this means for the presidential race? Do you think it's pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered for Trump? Will Haley pull off a surprise win? I think if she wins New Hampshire, then I think the momentum could swing her way. So I guess it's really all going to come down to New Hampshire, right, fellows?
No, it'll come down to March the 5th,
okay.
Super Tuesday. We'll see how well she does. And she has the biggest gift that Trump gave Haley was the time that Trump mixed up Haley with Nancy Pelosi, believe it or not. In other words, he kept railing on Haley. Haley did this in Congress. Haley did that in Congress. And Trump was clearly suffering from dementia because he confused Haley with Pelosi. And that happens when you start hitting your 80s. I mean, even chess players know at age 50, you stop playing competitive tournament chess. Kasparov did, a lot of players did. It's because your mental acuity just isn't where it is. So, Steve, this is the biggest gift that Haley can get between now and March the 5th. Unfortunately, I don't think it's enough time to turn over New Hampshire and her family.
Right.
But,
And
my
before
question
we
would
get to
be-
Mark, yeah, go ahead, Mark. Give me what I'll follow up on that before I want to listen to what Sasha Starr and
Yeah, no
Mark
problem
says.
at all. Like I said, I think it is as Nick said, a big gift to Trump, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And all along those lines, I mean, he is still collecting endorsements of former opponents. As a matter of fact, not only did DeSantis back him, but Tim Scott was up in New Hampshire backing him as well. So it'll be interesting to see how all these endorsements play. Most people that I am talking to think that it is a given and that it will not change anytime soon, that it's going to be Trump versus Biden in that classic rematch. I think about Ali and Frazier and their various boxing rematches and all along those lines, but it will definitely look like it was heading toward a rematch unless something catastrophic changes, and some of these indictments on both sides could be catastrophic changes that could change the course and the trajectory. But right now, it does look like we are heading toward a rematch between those two individuals. So we will have a returning president, whether it is the current sitting president as a returning president, or whether it is, like as many people on this network have said, Grover Cleveland, it is somebody that won, lost, and then won again. And then there are some people that are wondering if he wins again, what those consequences will be, and all along those lines. I did hear an interesting comment, and I'd love to hear both your thoughts as well as Nick's thoughts, as he is from this state. But I was reading in a Facebook post or some other post, it was somewhere on the internet, that there was a former opponent of DeSantis that said that even though he will be coming back to Florida as a lame duck, and we do know he took on Disney, speaking of ducks and everything along those lines, that he will not be your typical lame duck. They were saying he will probably be an angry duck, which means that he might be on a vengeance tour and all along those lines, even though he can not apparently run for the governorship again. So I was wondering both of your thoughts around that, because he did make a lot of enemies in the Florida area, and there are some people that think that he might be on one of those vengeance tours should he go ahead and now that he's dropped out, and now that he will be a lame duck. So a lot of people in Florida, from my understanding, are worried about that. It was one of his opponents that brought that up. But any thoughts around that?
Yeah, could you repeat the question, Mark? I was just responding from Kimberly. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. The question was whether DeSantis, now that he is going to be the governor of Florida and continue his governorship, whether now that he's dropped out, whether he's going to be an angry governor and go after his enemies with a vengeance and everything. So that was
I don't know. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, this is his last term now as governor, and he's probably very frustrated that, it's all about timing, right? I mean, I think if he isn't nasty and shows himself as a good governor that can continue to get things done, he is young. He could have a chance in 2028 if he plays his cards right to appease that Trump base, right? So I just think it really matters. I mean, if he's nasty and a poor loser, and he's not going to be nice to Democrats. I mean, he's going to continue to lead as a conservative governor, shipping out immigrants and refugees to Martha's Vineyard, doing all those kinds of things. So I guess we'll see. I don't know what Sasha Starr thinks about this game changer. Sasha, what are your thoughts about all of this?
Well, when you're talking about Trump's base, in either case, whether he will win this election or he will lose this election. Now, let's suppose he wins this election, at least nomination for sure, election possibly. Now, he has another 4 years. So in 4 years' time, doesn't matter about his legal problems or so on, let's leave it for a second. So he will no longer be eligible to run for a presidency. So what that means? That means that his base will evaporate. There will be no more base because there will be no more Trump. Because remember, this base is associated with Trump only. It is not associated with any other leaders of Republican Party. Not with Mitch McConnell, not with Haley, not with... so the base is very unique because I've just, earlier in the morning, I looked at the prospects of New Hampshire. And you know where Trump's biggest lead is among uneducated workers and he has lead of like 80-20 over Haley. When it comes to college graduates, when it comes to more educated people, Haley leads him by 20 and more points. So this uneducated base of Trump so-called will evaporate in 4 years for sure. Now, if he will not become a president this year, then it will evaporate as soon as the election is over. There will be no more base because there will be no more Trump. It's not your regular conservative Republican Party. It is a party of Trump. It's a party of one man. And when one man will cease to exist one way or another, there will be no more base. And the Republicans will have to go and seriously start to rebuild their own party, which will stand for certain ideas, for certain platform, and become back to reality. Today is a party of one man, Trump. That's all there is to it.
Right.
What I wanted to add is that basically all these people like DeSantis, Nikki Haley, they knew that, of course, Trump will win the nomination. So what made them run? Two things. One is to make a platform for their 2028 run. And in case of Haley, it was also a chance to be nominated for vice president in case of Trump would win, or at least she would be nominated. So even if Trump loses, then again, that help her chances in 2028. But she overplayed her card in criticizing Trump simply because she started to believe in her own team propaganda that she has chances, she's gaining, she's so on. So she became emboldened and ruined both her chances to for a platform in 2028 and to be nominated as the vice president by Trump.
Yeah, that's
Well,
another
I
thing
have
that's
to
going.
disagree with our colleague from Canada for a couple reasons. First of all, you're in Canada, Sasha. And if you follow what happened here, the Trump base is really the Tea Party base. It was the tax stuff already, which kind of was a wing of the Republican Party. It will be there after Trump is gone. And DeSantis wants to carry the mantle of the Tea Party, tax enough already. So it's going to come back. That's problem number one. Problem number two, as Yogi Berra said, it ain't over till it's over. And Nikki Haley, with all due respects, is a hard worker. Trump is not. Trump is basically lazy. Nikki Haley will work her butt off. She has 30 days to deliver,
Yeah.
Super Tuesday primary. If she does not win the Super Tuesday primary or doesn't collect anything on Super Tuesday, it's over. It'll be over. If
No.
she does,
Right.
it'll be a long race, and Trump over the long run probably wouldn't be favored to win. So as Yogi Berra said, "And over till it's over." But you need Trump to stumble. He stumbled once already. He has strike one when he started saying, "Well, Nikki Haley did this, Nikki Haley did that," and he was making reference to Nancy Pelosi. It's showing his age is starting to show.
Well, I think, yeah, exactly. And I'll leave with this. I have to.
He stumbles a couple more times, and this could change.
Right.
So I'm not going to count. I'm not going to count it out till after March.
And this is an important question before I take off, and I want to get a quick update on Ukraine from Sasha, and I'll be back hopefully tomorrow. But real quickly, I think what's interesting is that I do think I think the case for Haley is that whether it sticks or not is that I'm really the best Republican to beat Biden, right? This will be the first time if she were the nominee that there's a 32-year age difference between the incumbent and the Republican nominee, which I think could really swing over independents, moderates, and even some Democrats who just don't want a president that old. I think also the Kamala factor, many people would vote for Haley because they just wouldn't want Kamala to be the president if Joe Biden were not able to complete the term. But how much do you all think that this whole Bidenomics argument, and I know we have Modern Investing with Sasha. We have, the show with Dave. But send me that link. I'm going to try to jump on at 11 if I can for David Walker, and I might ask him this question. But this whole notion of Bidenomics, I mean, how do we think that it's working, guys? You know, I mean, 14 million jobs, unemployment down to 3% in North Carolina, 2.7 million jobs created last year, $31 billion investment coming in. You know, but why are the Republicans on the other side saying that we're in debt and inflation and interest rates? So I don't know what to believe anymore, but
I mean, in terms of economics, it does seem like there is improvement, and Sasha and Nick would know better than I would, and all along those lines, because they are in that investment space. But a number of companies are doing well. There is the unemployment figures, and I do know that they can be skewed one way or the other, and all along those lines. But it does seem like we are improving, and there's a lot of investment in infrastructure projects and all along those lines. But as several people have said on this show and other shows as well, there is a messaging issue, and I don't know that that message is getting to people. And for years now, and I would argue for decades, we have been very much into shortened messages. I think Kelly brought that up on one of our past shows, and definitely into a lot of rhetoric and all in that space. So I think a lot of people are paying attention more to the showmanship and the kind of like personality issues, and not really paying attention to how it has impacted them daily and all along those lines. They are looking for the person that resonates with them and that has actually much of a showman. And there is no doubt that Trump is a effective showman. He's been in that business for a while and everything. But of course, he's got his own issues in that space, because it'll be interesting, because sometimes you can be a showman, and being a showman can backfire on you if you are too much of a showman, or if you come off as being silly and all along those lines. So they are saying that he's already done that a couple of times in some of these court cases, and they're saying that he may testify Monday in the defamation case brought by E. Jean Carroll. And I can only imagine what he might say or do. And some of those things could hurt some of the independents and some of the votes that he would need in a general election. Not so much the base, because I agree with Nick that his and others that his base is solidly behind him and all along those lines. But the MAGA part, the MAGA wing is only part of the Republican wing and everything. So I definitely think that whoever it is going to have to build a coalition definitely in the future. But I'm wondering about this personality side of what's going on in politics, and it's on all sides. We even see it here in the state of North Carolina, and we've seen it in California and New York and a number of other places as well, because I think a lot of people are getting enamored by the personalities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, and I don't know what the future will hold in terms of
Yeah, I just don't see the economy being that great that you're going to see that Biden has any advantage, because frankly, the economy was good under Trump, so that's going to kind of isolate itself out. And then also you look at it, both presidents basically put the country more and more in debt. 25% of all debt was acquired under the Trump administration, and Biden, of course, piled on more on top of it. So we're running what some economists call a false economy, an economy that's based on borrowing and spending, borrowing and spending. By the way, anybody on this channel, you can make yourself look really good by just running up your credit cards. And you'll say, wow, I'm having a real great year this year. Look at all the money that I spent. Look at all the toys that I bought. And ignoring the fact that you created a huge amount of debt. So I think the economy is going to, it's going to be a washout issue for Joe. And then you're going to go back to what Mark said, the cult of personality. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the personality, you have a younger Donald Trump versus an older Joe Biden. And unfortunately, Joe is not a young 80. He can be a young 80, but he's not one of them. And so there you've got a very serious problem. So our poll, and we're running a LinkedIn Pod TV poll right now, shows Trump beating Biden 75% to 25%.
Hey, but just really quickly, and this is a question, and maybe Sasha wants to jump in as well. I've heard several people say that, including on other channels and other things along those lines. How many people do you feel, I know what we say they should do is part of the reason of even this network being founded and everything, but how many people do you think honestly understand the debt? Because a lot of times if you hear figures that are thrown out there like $1 trillion in debt, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there's a lot of people that are like, well, the U.S. government can print out its own money, and they don't understand the notion of the debt and everything. So I was wondering, do you think that that's really going to be a big issue when there are so many people that are of a voting age that really have no clue what that debt means? Because it just seems like a big number that is thrown out there by the politicians that a lot of people in my mind don't understand.
Mark, it creates a lack of maneuverability. I'm right now conversing with the head of AARP, because they say, don't touch Social Security and Medicare. Social Security and Medicare will go broke if you don't touch it. So the thing is, you can jump up and down, don't touch Social Security and Medicare like a middle-aged school kid. But when you're broke, it doesn't matter. You can jump up, please, I don't want to pay my credit card, but it doesn't matter. So what we have is a real group of unrealistic Americans out there. But you're right, Mark, there is a solution. It's the printing press. We did that last time. It creates two things, inflation and hyperinflation. And who does that hurt? Hurts poor people. So rich people are kind of like shrugging their shoulders. They're going, okay, guys, look, if you don't want to touch the debt, you don't want to touch Social Security, you're going to print money, inflation and hyperinflation, which would be the real problem, will skyrocket, and poor people will be even poorer. They just don't know it. And that's what happened the last time. The reason we're having hyperinflation is the massive printing press of the government pushing out $2,000 checks, pushing out more cash than the economy can absorb. And it will turn us into a Venezuela, Argentina style economy where inflation will be 8% a month. And so, yes, you can ignore the problem. You can print your way out, but get prepared for 8% per month inflation. And that'll be a very interesting.
Well, I think that's the problem. I think inflation, but I think at the end, I'll leave with this, and if Sasha will give a quick update in Ukraine, and I'll try to be back at 11 for a few minutes before I head out. So send me the link, guys, so I can join World Economics. I'd love to get David's Walker's input. But Sasha, a quick update in Ukraine, and I'll leave you with this. I mean, I think it all comes down to the economy. I think that if we're not in a recession, Biden has an argument to say, look, we've got net new jobs. My investments in infrastructure have worked. Give me one more chance to be in the White House, and we're in a better place than we were 4 years ago. The only reason he doesn't get back in is because of his age, his handling of the war in Israel, which could affect Muslim voters in the swing states, and would a few states like Michigan and other states like that go to Donald Trump. And if that's the case, this thing could get really dicey to get to 280 electoral votes. So I think it's going to be a close election either way. I think it's going to come down to 5 states: North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, right? Let's be honest.
Maybe Pennsylvania's in
Pennsylvania, right? So I think that's going to be the key in the argument. But real quickly, let's get a quick update in Ukraine, and then I've got to run and come back at 11. So send me the link. Sasha Starr.
Steve, thank you very much. You already 4 times announced that you want to hear about
Ukraine.
I'm so sorry. You continue into something else.
Okay.
2 minutes later, I want to hear about Ukraine from Sasha. However, I want to talk about the economy and about this, about that, and so on and on.
Please, Sasha, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I have a lot of patience for that. But anyway.
Well, please, Sasha, thank you.
Before we will go to Ukraine, I want to tell you something. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has admitted that he is consulting on all affairs somebody by the name Donald Trump, who is technically today is nothing, less than zero. Why less than zero? Because he has 91 indictments and 4 major lawsuits and much more than that. However, he's advising somebody almost convicted felon about the all affairs, including Ukraine. That's one very interesting thing to observe. That tells me about the state of Republican Party, and I'm not tired to say it's not a Republican Party, it's a party of Trump. And once Trump will be done and over with, there will be a rebuilding of Republican Party from the zero. Now, how it affects Ukraine? The delegation of major European countries, the European Union and UK, and they all visited Washington, and they had a lot of talks with the administration and with the representative of the House, primarily Democrats. Their message was very loud and clear. If you will not immediately start to help Ukraine, then our relation relationship with the United States will be very different. No longer we are going to help you with any your endeavors, whether it's mission to Iraq or Afghanistan, or today you are worried about China and Taiwan. No more help from Europe will be available to you. You are on your own. You can rely maybe on Canada and Mexico and maybe Venezuela, maybe a few other countries. Europe will no longer cooperate with you. Full stop, period. Okay, so this is basically a new development that Europe now is, they already put their military production on extremely new level, not only to help Ukraine, and helping Ukraine means helping themselves against Russian aggression. And because Russia is not alone, it's together with Iran, with North Korea, with China, and there are several satellites groups like Houthis and many others, too numerous to talk about. So United States with this present policy, which will be even more isolationist, provided that Trump will win the election, will put United States as a island in a sea of all kinds of wars, upheavals, destructions, all this, for example, attacks in Red Sea by Houthis and others. That makes inflation a real threat, because if you are going to take for the same thing, the same trip of oil to be brought through Red Sea, and instead you have to go through all the way around Africa, it will add up to the cost of oil, and not only oil, but any other production. And United States alone will be absolutely helpless to deal with that. So this is something what independent voters have to evaluate when it will be time for election.
Hey,
Sasha
Sasha.
Star, I want to thank you for that, and once again apologize for going over. I had a little too much coffee this morning, but that was really insightful. So thank you so much. And I'm going to be back at 11. I think at the end of the day, it's really just going to come down to some of these things we've talked about. Nobody really knows. I think it's going to be a close election. I think at the end of the day, Biden's age certainly doesn't help him. And I think that we need to take a look. And we're living in a very unstable world, but I don't think Donald Trump would do anything to help that. In fact, I think it would be more of an isolationist foreign policy and an ally for Putin and other dictators in the world, because let's face it, Trump, in my opinion, would treat the presidency more like a dictator. But I'll be back in a few. I want to thank you all for being with me. Looking forward to an interesting year, 2024, and we'll be seeing you all.
We'll continue the discussion and everything while you're gone, Steve. But one of the things I was going to ask Sasha, actually, and everything. Well, one, there's only a 3-year difference between Trump and Biden and everything, but there does seem to be a movement. I think we're seeing it in Germany, where there was some demonstrations and everything around. It's not just the immigration issue here in the United States, but it is worldwide, because there is even some people that are rallying against what they are saying are the far right deportation plans and all along those lines. So just wondering, are we seeing more of a move to the right worldwide in your assessment and everything? I did see that a certain individual, Elon Musk, who we
we are, and it is world edition. So one thing is, today they're opening up the Sri Ram Temple, which is and we're talking about nationalism. So Modi's a perfect example. There is a movement of nationalistic politics. The Hindu state in India opening up a Lord Ram Temple, which was actually built on a Muslim mosque. There's been a lot of the Supreme Court of India ruled that the Hindus could build a temple there. Very controversial, big day for Hindus. But you see this nationalism. I mean, I think there is a return to right-wing dictators who want to come in and say, look, it's all about us. It's about our country. It's about how are we going to be number one? And nationalism works that way, Mark. So I'll end with that. And I do think that the entire rules-based international system we've had in place since World War II is falling apart. And many countries out there, like China, like Taiwan, like Russia, India. Even though India is the world's largest democracy and India Republic Day is the end of this week, it's still something I think that we all need to be sensitive. I'll be back in a few. Thank you all so much. Be safe.
Yeah, definitely. We do have other folks there. What is your thoughts on bringing in Jacoby as well? But Sasha, what is your thoughts? Is there a move toward the right worldwide and all along those lines? What is your assessment of that?
Well, first of all, you started to talk about immigration, and it's whether it's part of go to the right movement or not. All I would like to say is that immigration cannot be seen as a right. Immigration is a very complicated process, and trust me, as an immigrant in the past, I know more or less what it's talking. Although at my time it was much easier to go through the process. It was much easier to get settled in the adopted country. And today, all these demonstrations and all this on the south border, people, you're talking about tens of thousands of people, believing that this is their right to cross the border and settle in US, whether legally or illegally or somehow. That's very disturbing development. Europe already understands the merits of that, and they basically cut down dramatically immigration from Africa, East, and all that. And to tell the truth, Europe today is a very different country that I was there last time 10 years ago. It's very different, and I don't know who's benefiting from it.
I forgot to make a major announcement. Sasha, this doesn't affect you so much since you're in Canada, but I want to make this is game-changing news back home. Janet Cowell, the former state treasurer, has just announced her candidacy for mayor of Raleigh. And so everybody is just shell-shocked. No one saw this coming. So anyway, Mark and Jacoby, I just want to throw that out there. And I got to tell you, this is wow. I don't know what the hell's going on, but you got to like Janet Cowell's chances of being the next mayor of Raleigh.
It can be interesting in those cases because sometimes you might have those high-end jobs and go for mayor or go for another job, and it doesn't always work. We can look at Mike Woodard right here in Durham and all in that space. So it depends on how she campaigns and whether she can bring some of her experiences on the state level to the local level. Yeah. I'm not sure what her views are going to be on growth because a lot of cities, whether it's Raleigh, whether it's Durham, or whether it's even a city in Canada, are about how the growth is going on to impact and all along those lines. One of the things I was going to ask Sasha, and I'd love to hear Jacoby's thoughts around this as well, is you mentioned Bidenomics earlier, and a lot of people, when they think about Bidenomics, are thinking about the infrastructure bills and all of those. And I, just like I was saying about some of the other issues, including the debt, I wonder how many people actually have a understanding of infrastructure, or do you have to break it down to get people to understand that it's bridges and roads and it's internet and it's a number of
I don't think people, that's a great point. I don't think people understand it. And I think Biden's doing a better job of it now, but he shouldn't have been doing that 6 months ago. Talking about this is the infrastructure. I mean, look about North Carolina. He said 8.9 billion in roads and bridges, 460 million for water, 1 billion for infrastructure for broadband, another 82 million invested, 882. I mean, like a slide saying these are the investments, these are what's resulted, and these are the jobs. And if he can do that around the country, but so much of the argument has been that Trump is crazy, and we know that. And we know that Trump is being indicted and all these things. But if you focus just like a tennis match, all of on your opponent, and you don't focus on your own game, you may not win the match. And so that's the way I'm going to, I just feel like there's still time.
But Steve, there's another issue that has become a red button issue, and an issue that a lot of people are going to be very much interested in. They say a lot of women will be interested in it, and we kind of alluded to it on Friday and all in that space. But I'm curious to see how the abortion issue plays out and whether that becomes a winning issue for the Democrats or not, because there does seem to be a lot of bet, even by Biden and Kamala, that this is going to be an issue that will impact the women vote and that will get women to come out in throes to vote for him, and all along those lines, because a lot of people were not thrilled by that decision, the Dobbs decision, and all in that space. So the question becomes whether it's going to be enough to get enough women out to change it. And some people will say that that was a major issue in the midterm elections that did cause the Democrats to win a lot of seats that they were not expected to win and everything. So they're already making this a big issue on the campaign trail. They did that in Virginia before they came down here with the infrastructure. So how important is that going to be?
I think abortion will be a big issue, and I think it's going to be a big issue in North Carolina's race. That's so we're talking about that tomorrow. I'll see you in a few. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else got any take on that? Whether abortion is going to be a big issue in this next campaign and all along those lines? Because it does seem like that's going to be something that a lot of folks are going to be talking about.
Try to make it an issue, but it isn't, because what happens is people made their minds up on abortion, and the Supreme Court pushed it all out to the states. So have no doubt that the social agenda of the Democrats are going to be blah, 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 but it's not going to make a difference. Right now we see Trump trouncing Biden 75% to 25%. In other words, it's not even going to be close. Yes, I would like to say the polls are different, but they're not. They are what they are. Immigration can be a big issue. But again, that's the one that Democrats are going to lose on, it looks like right now. Every metric that I see, the Democrats lose, okay, against Biden or Haley. Against Haley or Trump. So, and it's not just me, it's Davos. A lot of the world leaders are going like, let's get ready for another circus will come to town for 4 more years. And we know it's a circus because that's what he brings. He brings all the craziness of a circus to town. And unless Nikki Haley stops him, and the only way to stop him is he stumbles again. He needs to stumble a couple more times in February. So on March 5th. And the stumble was his confusion of Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. That's a big stumble, and he went on and on about that. And he was wrong and wrong and wrong. It was kind of like, and if she can pin him to the mat, and he does it a couple more times on TV, and the media shows it, Trump could lose on March the 5th, because the independent voters are the ones that make the difference. And they're looking at, maybe this guy isn't all there, because he confuses A versus B. But he needs to, the biggest enemy Trump has right now in the election is Trump himself.
Well, that raises an interesting question, because there was another candidate many years ago that stumbled before he passed away, and all along those lines, and he got a nickname and everything. So one of the things that I remember about Ronald Reagan was this notion of Teflon, and I'm wondering if there isn't some Teflon to Trump as well, because this is not the first time, and I think Jacoby will agree with me, that he has stumbled. He has done some things around words that were said wrong. He has done some things around stumbling himself, but we see more of the media covering what Biden has done versus what he has done. So it's not the first time that he has made a verbal slip or even another slip as well. So do we have a case of Teflon Trump? Because I do remember Teflon being an issue around Reagan as well. So Jacoby, do we have Teflon Trump? Is he getting away with some things that he's saying that people are not paying attention to, and he's got that little bit of Teflon bouncing off of him?
There are just a few things. Yes, Trump has his issues already baked in the cake with a lot of his followers and a lot of the people that are going to vote for him. So they're going to accept whatever he says. For example, it always tickles me when they clutch their pearls when Biden says something about, any Democrat says anything MAGA related or anything, when Biden went out of his way to say that it's not all Republicans, but there's a section, and then they clutch their pearls over it while chanting whatever Trump says when he calls the Democrat Party or anything that he's against, pedophiles, losers, and a whole bunch of other things. So yes, whatever Trump does is baked in the cake right now. I'm not sure what poll this 75% is. That's not really a good poll, because it's not even normal. It's not even close to what the actual poll is. When the poll number is 44 and 45, with Trump in the lead by 1%, which is actually within the margin of error. That's according to a national poll. So the 25% poll, that just tells you that the demographic that you're reaching on the LinkedIn leans heavily Republican, more so than an actual independent or balanced group. So it's not really an actual great poll to pull from. In terms of the abortion debate, yes, abortion is going to be on the ticket, and that's actually a big thing. It's not just a Democrat talking point, and it's not just a social engineering thing. I'm not sure what that comes from, but it is an actual valid argument that will be on the ballot and will actually be important to many voters because of, yes, Trump is literally running on, he's the one who got rid of abortion and so on and so forth. He is running and campaigning on that now. However, it is a bad talking point because it is a winning talking point for the Democrat Party. Earlier, you guys were talking about the economics and so on and so forth. And yes, the economy by every measure is doing better. But as you pointed out, Mark, should we elaborate or should people reach into the whole idea of trying to go into the nuances? We should. But in all honesty, we don't. And the reason we don't, we also put up numbers, which pops up the $34 million in debt. Well, okay, there's a lot more context within there, but we understand the 34 trillion is an easy number to see and, fear monger off of. We're spending money on this, which we can fear monger off of. Immigration is a big issue, which will be in the election. Hence the reason the Republican Party in the House legitimately said that they will not work on immigration because that will give Biden a win. Yet the crazy part, we're going to blame Biden for it anyway. In terms of, Trump went out and legitimately said he wants the economy to fail within the next 12 months. So he will not be blamed for it. So the Republican Party is looking for ways to push these talking point, Southern strategy, war on woke, all these things that the Democrat Party has to respond to, but it's effective because it keeps the Democrats from talking about the actual positives in the economy from the infrastructure bill and what it does, how they are trying to fix the immigration system, and they put forth actual policies that they want to work towards. But it's easier to say that, oh, well, these people are taking our jobs, or these are evil people, and fentanyl. Ooh, fentanyl. Heck, the game is so obvious and is so it's so idiotic at this point. For example, Nikki Haley is gaining on Trump in New Hampshire. So what does Trump do in one of his speeches? And this goes to how the messaging works and how they know how simplistic the messaging has to be now, because it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter if you're arguing policy or debating policy. They know for a fact that they're not listening to those policy debates. So Trump in his speech said Nikki Haley about 5 times in a row, and then talked about something random. Then went back, Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley, and this is bad. So he's not even talking about what Nikki Haley is doing to get his individuals in line to vote against her. Not even for policy reasons, just because he said vote against her. It's the same thing. It's just, that's just the way it is now.
Yeah, and I want to get down to a couple of world issues. I had a couple of questions for Sasha and everything, but one of the things that oftentimes people think about, even with that immigration, is the similarities between the various countries and all along those lines. So we do have certain countries, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, that are having policies of deporting people back to their land, whether that's Rwanda or a number of other places and everything. And then we have certain Republican states that are sending people from the states that they are in to say a more liberal state, and all along those lines, like maybe somebody from Texas sending them to New York, or somebody from Florida sending them to Pennsylvania or something along those lines. So I guess the question I had for you is, what is the difference between, say, what Germany is doing and what is going on here in the United States? Because a lot of people that are looking from the outside would say that they are very similar policies and that they are both dealing with immigration and deportation, which are very similar issues, and all along those lines. So in your mind, what is the difference between these two situations, that here in America and that in those places like Germany, because Germany was one of those places, and other parts of Europe?
I wish you would invite an immigration consultant who would be really up to the all points of immigration in different countries at present and would give you a qualified opinion. I think that basically immigration is a very complicated issue. I don't think that there is a right of people to immigrate to any countries they wish to immigrate. And I think countries should be much more mindful of defending their borders and make only selective admission to this particular country based on certain parameters. In Canada, for example, this is a very complicated sense of each potential immigrant, where he has to admit his many characteristics, like, of course, age, qualifications, education, experience, and on and on and on. It goes like probably several pages now. And then they evaluate this and processing and put extra points on each particular questions, and then they have a minimum qualifications numbers and so on. It's I'm not a great fan of this prospect because it's too mathematical and scientific and has probably little to do with realities. But then what you do, what's the alternative, is just to give it to all the immigration officials and make selection just the way they feel, whether this person is right for immigration or not. So it's difficult issues. There's no perfect solution. It all depends what really country wants. Country wants to admit more immigrants, so they have to make application process less restrictive. If a country doesn't need immigrants and doesn't want to admit, then make it 55 pages, and you will not even be able to feel all that. And Canada is blessed that there is no illegal immigration because it's surrounded by oceans, and United States on the south, and that's all there is to it.
Tell me what your thoughts, because it does seem to be that there's been more notions around immigration and deportation, not just here in the United States, but worldwide as well. But just wanted your reflections and thoughts on that issue.
So just to point out, there are actual limitations everywhere for immigration. Every country, including the U.S., and nobody is saying they have a right to move to a separate country. What it is people are moving to find a better life for themselves or their family. So we can't have this misconception that, oh, well, a person leaving Guatemala who's coming through Mexico believes that they have a right to go to the U.S. That's not what they're doing. Same thing with an individual who decides to immigrate from Mexico going straight through the U.S. to go to Canada. They don't believe that they have a quote unquote right. The idea is that they're trying to find a better life. Same thing coming out of other areas across the globe, coming from Gaza, coming from Egypt, they're all just trying to find a better life for themselves. So it's not, hey, I have a right to be here, so you must accept me. No, they're coming for help. They're coming across to leave where they're from to go to a better place. It's the same thing if If my neighborhood, there was a high crime rate, I want to get out of this neighborhood to go to another neighborhood that's a lot safer for my family. It's not that I have a right to the other neighborhood. It's the fact that I'm trying to find a better place for my family. And every country has a setup where there are limits on how many people from particular areas can come to a particular nation, including in the US. For example, we have hit caps already for some individuals in the Southern Hemisphere to come to the US. But the problem is that there are still issues in the areas that these individuals where we have hit caps. And until we can fix those issues, or help with those issues, or until those issues go away, people are still going to come. So there is no potential way to throw up a wall or completely shut off the border. So now if you shut off the border, you're also shutting off trade, because that happens at ports of we're going to stop all the fentanyl. Well, fentanyl comes through the points of entry already. It's not coming through the actual the wide open border. That's not true. Those are all things of fear mongering. If we're going to, and Sasha, I completely agree. It's a highly complex issue, and it would be great to have someone whose specialty is on the border, because one way to fix the border is one of the things that the GOP has voted completely against. They don't want to give that $14 billion. It doesn't fix everything, but it certainly helps because it actually adds people to help processing, because we have a huge backlog of individuals that are stuck in Mexico, in Brazil, and all these other areas that are trying to do it legally, but can't, because they can't be processed. And so because we don't have that, then you have an issue where these individuals that are trying to go through it legally, stuck in there for years, need to be processed. But now they're starting to be attacked where they are. So they have to make this venture, this bad venture. So we have to stop thinking of immigrants as being something bad on our society. Immigrants are great for our society. They help our economy tremendously. They provide jobs and they fill jobs. They do a lot for our society and our culture, because we consider ourselves a melting pot. So therefore, let's accept more people into that melting pot to make that flavor of our culture better, because the immigrants that come to the US have the lowest crime rate and compared to native born Americans. So we got to change our mindset and understand that we need to fix the immigration and not demonize the immigration system and the immigrants coming this way.
Just really quickly along those lines, we all got about 5 more minutes to go, and I have reached out to a couple of guests in the immigration space, so hopefully we'll have a guest coming on in the near future that can speak to these issues and all along those lines. But and like I said, I've got my parents that have been there. I think both of them have been to China and everything at one point or another. It was a long time ago, probably multiple decades ago, and all along those lines. But that being said, don't, because I know there's this whole notion of one China, because there's even some people that are only recognizing one China, including in the world politics. And Taiwan is saying that it spots 6 more Chinese balloons, one that crossed the island, and all along those lines and in that space. But isn't there a lot of immigration, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have not been to that part of the world, between, say, Taiwan and China? I know that they are at odds and have different philosophies, one being a communist nation and the other being more of a capitalist nation. But it does seem to me, from what I've heard, including from some people that have lived in that country, that there's even immigration between the two of those nations, as well as that island is literally off the coast of China. But am I wrong in that assessment? Nick, do you have any idea? You talk to those Chinese people on the internet all the time.
Well, before Nick, since Nick had disappeared, yes, there are immigrants that go. I mean, people travel. We're humans. We're nomads. But on an interesting note, check this out, Mark. Since we're coming closer towards the close, so in terms of the immigration and even getting your green card and stuff like that, there are things that you have to do that people don't realize, and the steps that you have to take become challenging for us. There are people that are our age that are trying to get their green cards. They're trying to, do the things the legal way, but the normal individual does not know the amount of money that it takes, the amount of time that it takes, and these things that you have to jump through. For example, you have to take a test, and that test is at our age mark. We would fail it. And I'm not lying. We would fail the test. Sasha, you would fail the test to get a green card in the U.S. But we're expecting these immigrants, or we're expecting immigrants to come to the U.S. Then if you want to get that, you want to do your stuff legally and get that green card, you're going to fail. The people that are yelling that are the same people that would fail the same test that they're wanting them to pass. For example, here's a question that's on there, Mark. I just so happen to have the cards from some of the questions that go on that test. And I'm sure Nick in the background, Nick, you wouldn't pass the test either. It's just the things that they're asking you to do. Let's see. Before he was president, Eisenhower was a general. What war was he in? Anybody? You got to know this for your green card test.
Wouldn't that be World War II?
World War II it is. Yeah. Now you got to answer all these questions. Let's see. We got the two major parties. That's an easy one. When was the Declaration of Independence adopted?
It was signed in 1776, but I was thinking it was adopted before then.
When was it adopted?
If it was signed in 1776, I'm going to go with 1775.
Incorrect. It was July 4th, 1776. See how it's worded? You're going to fail that one. Let's see. The 13 original states, name 3. You should get that one.
Oh, North Carolina, Virginia, and North Carolina, Virginia, and Delaware.
Good call. Let's see. What's another good one? All right. Independence Day is easy. Capital of the U.S. is easy. Why did the colonists fight the British?
Not to pay taxes.
Yeah.
All right. That's one.
Oh, they want you to give all the reasons?
Come on.
Oh, well,
Give me 3. There's one. Because the British Army stayed in their houses, because they didn't have self-government.
Those are the other 2?
Yep. What is the rule of law?
I need a lawyer for that one.
So again, like I said, these are, I just said, 5 questions out of a book that they're giving you. This is a good 200 cards that they're wanting you to memorize. And a person of our age who's never seen or even been in a civics class, you want them to answer these for their green card up under a lot of stress. And then also, if you fail it, you got to pay for it again.
Oh, yeah.
So don't forget that some of them, they even don't know English or know it's very elementary.
Exactly. So we make it such a challenge. And don't get me wrong, I understand we got to make it challenging, but we've got to understand, as our native born individuals in our society itself, we've got to understand it's not so easy. It is a challenge, and there's a lot of money to it. And there's a reason why a lot of people are struggling to get their green card or struggling to immigrate, and calling them illegal doesn't help, because that's only demonizing the individual. Because, how can a human be illegal? And then on top of that, why not just, try and help them move forward? Try and teach them these things about governments, and give them the civics books. And how we're talking about,
to tell people we got to get ready to go to the.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing I was getting to mentioned really quickly, and we can talk about this tomorrow, is apparently the EU is seeking consequences for Israel over opposition to the Palestinian statehood. And apparently the EU's Borrell has said that Israel's plan to destroy Hamas is not working. And I'm not saying that he's right or wrong, but we can bring that up on tomorrow's show and have some conversations around that as well. But this has been a robust conversation, and we'll get ready to get on out of here and have the Economics Monday show as well.
Bye.